Good evening. Time is now 6:30. Would you all please stand and join with me in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. Linda Jarvis.
President.
Gary Scalabone.
Yeah.
Here. Linda Ford. Here. Tom Peterson. Stephanie Walsh. And Lisa Carey. All contacted me in advance to let me know we would not be here. I did not hear that. Our first order of business is to review the minutes from our previous meeting on September 18th. Do we have any corrections or amendments that need to be made? Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have a second? Our motion made by Don and seconded by Lynn. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the minutes from September 18th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
All right, we have 4 yes votes and 1 abstention. All right, the first order of business is the town financial report. I have one question on page 1. We are on our building permits. I'm guessing we're going to anticipate more than $79,000
Yes.
for the rest of the year.
Yes.
What would we typically have?
200,
Well,
250. We're up to $800,000, so usually about 200 or so.
180, 200. I would say 180,000 for like,
We still anticipate another large one coming in from Uline, over $500,000.
you can see we got another state of Connecticut payment, the state property. So I already received that, the $60,573. That just came in recently. And then under other local revenues, you can see we received a payment from Connecticut Water for some of the patching of the roads. It was $180,000. So that's why you can see a big increase of total revenue of $223,000. Recreation revenue, I did another transfer out of the receivable line because we're trying to reduce that, the receivables for recreation. So another amount of money went in there. So right now you have $80,000 in recreation revenue. The balance for the year to date is 46. So you'll definitely reach that. You don't see anything for supplemental tax revenue because we don't send the bills out till January for supplemental vehicles. So you would see that January, February.
notice we have 477,000 listed already on the fund balance. Can you break that down a little bit, please?
477, so that's on the back page. We have It's on the very back page, 7, and it equals to 477. 300,000 highway truck, a lease payment at 82, evidence shed 38,000 for HVAC, police truck 51. It says buildings and garage, I think it's the siding of the garage out here, and then a weed trimmer for 1,000.
What's the anticipation behind the highway truck?
We already ordered it. So highway trucks, yeah, we ordered it. But those take over a year to get. So like from last budget, we ordered it, and we're gonna get that probably in November from last fiscal year.
What type of police truck did we end up getting? You know,
I don't know.
I'm not sure, I can't remember off the top of my head.
do we have a member in the audience that can answer that question?
I think we got a Chevy Silverado.
2,500,
Yeah.
something like that?
Maybe one, I think so. I haven't personally, well, maybe I did see it, I just paid attention to it yet.
I can, I'll email you with that information if you like.
All right, any other questions on page 1? Questions on page 2? I know that with the assessor and the tax collector, the computer funds are front-loaded. Do we
Yes.
anticipate having enough to cover that through the remainder of the year? Or is that potential?
I anticipate for that to be covered for the rest of the year. Tax collector, I know when she sends her bills out, there might be a fee associated with that, like in January. I don't know what that is off top.
Any other questions on 2? Questions on 3? Questions on page 4? On page 5, I don't know if I asked this question last month, but under animal control, electricity, that payment's not spread throughout the year?
All right, so I think I said this, but dog fund. So animal control, the town of Plainfield has to fund the dog fund, and all the bills get cut out of there. So what happens is the town will budget a portion of their expenditures. So then it's sitting in our dog fund account. And then electricity, the gas for the vehicle, her cell phone, all of that will come out of that account.
Any other questions on page 5?
on 5, the recreation, I can't remember, what contracts line item, it just says contract,
This is the maintenance
underneath
contract.
the pool contracts.
Well, pool contracts is, what do we have outside
There's
that?
the
DEP.
Triatron and the chemical review and also minor maintenance items.
And the contracts,
Yeah,
and what's the pool contracts?
that's what the pool contracts is, that.
And what's the contract?
So under contracts, I could
Or
look it
write it down.
up. Yeah, I'll look it up and let you know. I don't know off the top.
I believe that's for some of the rec programs they do at rec.
Page 6. Last month you were talking about, Kevin, last month you were talking about an in-house solution for the engineering firm. Do we have any update on that?
Yes, we have hired an engineer for the town of Plainfield who will be starting the 12th of November. So he has his stamp so he can be an engineer right away. He's coming up from Florida.
What's the salary going to be?
120.
Any other questions? Page 6, any questions there? Under capital expense in the town buildings, we're down to spending quite a bit. Are we going to have enough on that line? Or will we be looking at change, something, adjustments till the end of the year?
20,000 of that was for the analysis of the,
Town hall.
down below.
Yeah.
The
We had a
shooting
full
gallery.
analysis done of the building, and that included the ramp and also downstairs for the structural engineering review for the issues we've had with the water.
Do we anticipate any other big,
Tough to tell.
any other questions on 7? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we accept this financial report as presented.
I'll make the motion.
All right, motion has been made by Gary to accept the financial report as presented. Do I have a second? Seconded by Don. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Moving on. Next item on our agenda is the financial report from Board of Ed. Thank you for being here tonight. I wonder if you could start us off with a brief overview.
Absolutely. So for last fiscal year, the couple of purchase orders that we have remaining open, we've made some progress on them. So there's only 4 that are currently remaining open, 1 for the Shepherd Hill News project, and 3 still for the Plainfield High School HVAC work on top of the roof. There was one major change to last year, the fiscal year, for the remaining budget balance. We did have to revise our expenditures for special education. So we did move expenditures totaling just over $75,000 from the grant back to general fund. With our IDA grant, it is advised by the state to roll 15% of your grant funds to the second year of the grant. The IDA grants run for 2 fiscal years in total. You're supposed to spend 85% in the first year, 15 in the second year to cover the beginning part of the school year. So we have special education teachers that are covered under this IDA grant, so it's supposed to cover the payroll for September is the purpose behind the grant. That was not accounted for last year when they were doing the expenditures through payroll. So we did revise those expenditures, so we were rolling more money into the IDA grant to cover for this fiscal year. The new IDA grant for fiscal year 2025, we did receive $22,000 less than what we were expecting. And with the higher cost of special education for tuition students, we decided to revise that and roll 15%. So the amount held encumbered for the construction and maintenance work has stayed the same. Those numbers have been solid, but it does leave our projected budget balance remaining totaling $219,713.37. With the amount held encumbered, it puts our ending budget balance at just over $66,000. That was the big change for fiscal year 23-24. So you'll see on your object summary report for 23-24, your budget balance on the second to the last column has been revised from the last report you got from last month. This has also been communicated with our auditors, and they are aware of these changes as well.
I asked this question last month. You said it was too early to be this. But do you foresee, other than what you just shared, do you foresee any other potential significant variances in the budget that we're involved in right now?
No, we've been working on giving reports to the auditors. We've given them all the trial balance, the general ledger detail reports. They've come back and asked for some more reports. Everything seems to be going to plan, according to plan right now. We've been reconciling right along the way, so I don't anticipate anything. But the audit goes through the end of December, so if they find anything, they'll notify me. There was one big change, another change when we were reconciling last year's data, and it affects the 2% set-aside account. So you'll see number 2 on my financial discussions sheet. There was a previous request for the Shepherd Hill Elementary repair of the heater in the gym early in 2024, and the project was approved by Board of Education, Board of Finance to use the 2% account. The total cost of the entire project was $37,906. Unfortunately, at that time, only $26,000 was accurately charged to the 2% account. The other $11,372 was charged under the general fund, and the previous business manager did a journal entry transfer in the system, but did not reflect it accordingly in the bank. So it was never communicated to the town side to reduce that 2% set-aside balance. Again, as we reconcile that, those are those little things that could come up. So we did find that. We relayed the information to the auditor. I relayed the information to Kelly. We were able to get it reflected in the account correctly. And with that transfer from last month's request, we do have the updated balance in that 2% set-aside account at $82,115.19.
council have any questions? I will say this report that you've been sending to us is a lot easier to follow than when we've got them in years past.
I'm glad to hear that, thank you. This is the first month that we did do budget transfers to correct some of the accounts that we discussed in last month's meeting to the liability account, liability insurance account, and some other transfers that we needed to happen. The biggest account that we are still watching is the communications line, which I explained last month. We are waiting for the move from ECC to Shepherd Hill to be complete. Once the phone lines get cut over and everything is finalized, we will revisit that communications line since it is over budget, look at the encumbrance, and revise that budget.
Not sure, because it's the last page, the reserve survival level is going, you're projecting it out to June 25?
Yep, so that's just our ECHIP for our insurance. We project out for the year.
Okay, that's ECHIP?
Yes, for ECHIP for insurance. Our Board of Education enjoyed the graph last year, seeing where the survival lead in months. You should have at least 2 months survival with a ceiling of 4 months. Everything for August and even the numbers for September are showing that there's a low utilization percentage right now. So it actually is bringing our survival rate just over the 4 months, which is not a bad thing right now.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion that we accept this presentation as shared. We have a motion to accept this presentation of the financial report from the Board of Education. Do I have a second?
Also.
All right, motion made by Don, seconded by Gary. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda. Is to discuss and act upon line item transfers as presented by the Board of Selectmen. You should all have at least a copy of that information that was sent out earlier from Kelly. So I wonder if First Selectman could kind of speak to some of this for us.
Do my best. You see in front of you line item transfer request in order to bring us back to how this all came about. When our budget process occurred, we put an estimated number in the lines for those employees. We also anticipated that there would be a larger number for later on when the actually completion of the contracts. That did occur, so that's where we got to, as you see in front of you, the supervisors union, the town hall union, non-union employees, and police. And that's those numbers that add up, if you include that, would be total from the contingency, which was $299,850 to $297,606.10. That's why we're requesting to move those monies in to from line item transfers over to their departments.
So unless I misunderstand, we have a shortfall of $22.43.
That's a balance of,
That's the balance.
I'm sorry.
You can see that there were some items used out of contingency, so that's why we have to transfer from general insurance, computers, and workers' comp back into contingency, $53,644.
and then the final step to balancing is under the police department, heart and hypertension for $10,000, and police custodian. Because they didn't have a custodian for a few months, there was some savings there.
non-union like yourself and,
Yep. And secretary,
oh,
first selectman
oh,
secretary.
okay.
Yep.
We were normally supposed to do that back in February, right?
Are you, which one are you referring to?
The non-unions, as far as their schedule values for their salaries. That was, should have been done before budget season started. Because last month, you were going to start doing that now.
Right,
Yeah.
That's what we initially were going to do.
for this, the existing budget, we're in.
A year or so ago, we talked about doing that before the budget season started.
Which is why we'll probably be talking about it again next month. For the next budget. So essentially, we're basically moving money around, not really increasing the budget. You're just, what do you anticipate the savings from the workman's comp and general insurance? How are we achieving that?
Well,
Or is that going to be something that we're going to be looking at the end of the year?
no. We shouldn't, as long as there's not a lot of liability claims. If I get a lot of accidents where it affects our deductible, like vehicles, that will affect it.
So-
Okay? So I am anticipating not.
Any other questions about the line item transfers?
Well, I know, I looked through some of the contracts, like for the police and all that. I have no problem, it's just that the first year into this year, there's some serious increases there. I can see jacking up the starting fee quite a bit.
May I speak to that, if that's okay?
Yeah,
During the negotiations, we were looking at actually all of these unions that were looking at far behind other towns, municipalities. So the anticipation was to catch them up in the first year. The rest of the years in their contract are percentage increases. So that's why you see a huge jump in here for this year, and then after that, we'll level out with the percentages.
Now,
no, but, you know, you got a 5-year Gorman, they went up 22%.
For the first year of that contract. And after that,
Yeah, right. I mean, you could have went up 3 or 4%, 5%, but I can see the starting salary going up quite a bit. I have no problem with that.
I see,
I mean, that's
I see the deputy chief is here tonight, so I
Yeah, I don't want to step on Mr. Cunningham's toes, but obviously we all went through contract negotiations. We were very far behind. For the first time ever, we were at 21 police officers, including the chief and I, sworn police officers, staffed properly at this point. We needed those wage adjustments to get by, we needed those wage adjustments to retain, and we needed those wage adjustments to operate effectively. And now it wasn't, you know, between the hard work between Mr. Cunningham, the police commission, the union, the chief, and myself, now we're on hopefully stable surface to keep moving forward. These wage adjustments put us in comparative and competitive realm with other agencies such as Ledger, such as Willimantic, such as all these other law enforcement council agencies in the eastern region. So although on paper at this time it may look like a lot, all other agencies are going to be going through similar situations. We were so far behind our officers, the administration, that we needed to catch up. And now if you look, the lieutenant, he's actually a union member. I know he has a separate line item. For instance, when we brought him in contractually to begin with and establish the position, it was always the intention that we were going to get the position through the door, and then we were going to work to get him comparable as a lieutenant in law enforcement in the region. So at this time, they all do look like, yes, you know, on paper, on base value, it may look like it's an excess, but it's kind of the way of the world at this point, and Mr. Cunningham had to go through the weeds to get to this. So between that, the police commission and the chief, you know, these are very valued numbers. These were numbers that started off higher and worked their way down to almost basement level. Obviously, we want to keep the cops here. We keep paying $3,000, $4,000 for the academy year after year after year. Since 1982, we only had 12 officers retire from here. That's a problem. So at this point, I just want to basically voice my support for everybody who's involved in these contracts.
You alluded to something that I really want to ask, was my key question.
Yep.
With the enhancement of these contracts, bringing us in line with a lot of our neighborhoods.
Yes.
How do you feel that is going to impact retention?
It's going to impact it incredibly. And now between the salary increases along with the pension adjustments, officers are going to be looking to stay here rather than using us as a jumping board. There's several officers who have left here, quality homegrown officers from Plainfield who have left here, who are now looking back wishing they stayed here. They went to other agencies with state pensions, other agencies with 457, so on and so forth. Now they're looking back wishing they stayed here. All the experience went out the door. Now these officers are going to stay here and they're going to gain that experience and they're going to retire here with a healthy living.
So you have, including yourself and the chief, you have 21 active officers. Is that correct?
Including myself and the chief, sworn personnel.
But what do you have in the academy right now?
Currently in the academy, there's Recruit Brunel and Recruit Benoit in the New Britain Academy. They're going to be graduating at the end of November. And there's Recruit Phelan in the Law Enforcement Academy in Norwich. He's going to be graduating in February. So we still have 3 inactive officers.
Right.
But for instance, last night on the road, there was a supervisor and 3 officers. The minimum is still 2. The minimum is still 2. I want to remind everyone of that. I want to remind everyone that there's not a mandatory supervisor on, which opens up a lot of liability, but we're moving in the right direction with the proper staffing of each shift. There should be no time, if nobody takes off, there should be 3 officers on a shift if nobody takes off.
I know that this has been an ongoing conversation ever since I've been on the board, and we've slowly gotten to where we need to be.
Yes.
But in your mind, with these new additional officers that are in the academy, is that going to put us where we need to be?
I can't speak to that because it's obviously the chief's department, the chief's
Right.
vision, the chief's mission. He's always had a number in mind that was further ahead of 21 in the ballpark of 23, but we know how fortunate we are for gaining what we've had currently. And at this time, we're going to build on what we have and then look forward to the future.
If I can add to that one more thing.
Yes, please.
Again, we go back to the issue of how many years each contract is. You can't just build up the contract for this year and then drop them down lower, because it's not going to effectively support the officers to stay here. So that's why you'll see that it's level set at that point with each of these contracts to go with percentages after that. The other thing is we have more businesses that are coming into town that will need more support as we go along. So I can see that there will be a future where we can look for more officers coming in.
I researched other towns. You're doing okay, believe me.
Can always get better.
Any other questions on the line item transfers? Thank you, by the way.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
thank you for being here. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the line item transfers as presented by the Board of Selectmen.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the line item transfers as presented by the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a second? Motion made by Don, seconded by Lynn. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is to discuss and act upon a request from the Board of Selectmen for monies to be accessed from the fund balance to cover contingencies. Again, I would welcome the first selectman to give us insight onto these requests.
Thank you very much. Now that you've just done the line item transfers, we have a balance of $22,4390. So we still have more work to do. You'll see a list that I put copies of in front of you of possible needs for additional contingency monies. And last night, the Board of Selectmen voted to ask for a $131,000. We still have the highway union contract anticipated salary increases in there, and that's just a guesstimate because you don't know what they're going to be looking for. We have our first in-house meeting in November. We have a new engineer, as mentioned earlier. we're looking to make sure that they are able to come in running. So I asked him before what he's going to need for his daily operation, and there is a hardware purchase coming up. There's also a need for some CAD software, so that's something that is in there. Again, every year we look for what could happen. You asked earlier, do you anticipate anything? You never know. So that's why I asked for the monies to be $60,000 for unanticipated miscellaneous costs. Town hall dehumidifier and air scrubbers, we're running that as mentioned before. There is an issue with the downstairs area where along the pathway of the town hall, the platform, or I guess it's the patio area, separates out because water gets in, freezes, and opens up. Eventually the water gets to the basement, and so we did an analysis on the building and came up with what we have to do to fix it. We are going back out to bid with a modification to our bid from before, and we anticipate within a couple of weeks that'll go out to bid to fix. So in the meantime, the water getting into the basement causes mold. I've already had Mystic Air out to begin with to start up with the numbers. They told us what the numbers were. We were suggested to get scrubbers, and there's the air scrubbers, HEPA filters are in them, and then a couple of dehumidifiers, large dehumidifiers, which collect the water and run them off to either a large trash can or the other one goes off to a drainage issue. So that is we don't anticipate this to be an immediate bid, go out and fix it immediately. So we could be utilizing up to between $30,000 and $40,000 for those. That's why last night we voted to put $131,000 in front of the Board of Finance. And just so I can remind everybody, even if you were to say, yay, okay, that's good, this still needs to go to a town meeting because the dollar value then would have to go to a referendum. So the public would have to vote on it. And also, any unspent monies would immediately go back into the fund balance.
So you mentioned two different numbers.
Yeah, this is my paperwork from before. I would say the $131,000 is what the Board of Selectmen voted on last night. So that's what we're anticipating your discussion on.
And it's gonna have to end up going to a referendum.
Has to go.
So looking at this, the request says between 67 and 91, but the additional expense for the town hall, that's where we get to the 131? How does that?
You look at the right-hand column, it says highway union contract anticipate up to 20 grand.
Yep.
11,000 for software hardware purchases,
Yep.
60 grand for unanticipated miscellaneous costs, and $40,000 for town hall dehumidifier air scrubbers.
Okay. I don't have the one that says 40,000.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions on this request?
I personally, maximum 50K. Cover the union
Say that.
contract and the software. That's what so that's 31, so I rounded off to 50.
Are you making a motion?
No, I mean, I'm suggesting, I'm not sure if anybody might talk about it or whatever.
Did you hear what he said? Okay, now.
Could you repeat that, please?
No, I'm suggesting to give, take 50K versus the 131 to cover the union cost and the software for now.
Okay.
It come up to 31, I rounded it up to 50, and that's for 19.
Can I comment on that if you don't mind?
No, please.
You have to check with the town charter. The town charter says 50,000 and over requires you to do the same exact thing as you still have to go to a town meeting, you still have to go to a referendum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions?
shall I make a motion then? Or
Well, I'm thinking,
the other
here's,
thoughts?
yeah, I mean, you can make a motion, but this is my thought. I mean, we have these basically 4 items, and if we allocate a certain amount of money now, we may be doing this again in a month. If the funds aren't sufficient, like it needs to be done,
Of course, that's another referendum.
which will cost us another referendum.
Unless it's under 50, correct?
If it's 49,000 or 49,999 or less,
Yeah.
then it's just a town meeting.
Correct. Instead of 50, 49. I mean, that's just my idea, that's my idea.
This has to go to town meeting anyway.
It has to go to
Yeah,
town
even
meeting
my
anyway.
50 would, if it went 49.
If it's
Go to
under
town
50,
meeting,
it
not a
goes to
referendum.
just a town meeting. If it's over 50, it goes to town meeting and then to a referendum.
Excuse me, Dean,
Yes.
I could be wrong. Point of order, I don't even think we're supposed to be discussing it unless there's a motion on the floor.
Did you officially make a motion?
No.
No, I don't think you officially made a motion.
So why are we talking about it?
We're having a discussion to see if we can come up with a motion.
That's my point of order.
Okay.
We shouldn't be discussing it unless there's a motion on the floor.
All right.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Am I wrong?
No, we'll follow that.
Yeah.
We'll follow that.
I'll make a motion, we allot 50,000, so the fund balance to reimburse the contingency fund. Correct?
Okay, yep. So which means it goes to town meeting and referendum.
Correct.
So Gary has made a motion that we authorize $50,000 to come from the fund balance, go to a contingency fund, which would then provide us the opportunity to go to a town meeting and then a referendum. Do I have a second?
And that would give us, how much did we have money that we, money that each account?
Oh, yeah, it's end up having about 3 in contingency, 22 and change, I know.
So, looking for a second?
Well, the next thing would be to make a motion to approve it as requested.
We could,
Which number, though?
yeah. As was stated, anything that isn't spent on this, if we go with the 131, it automatically goes back to the fund balance. Which leads me to a question for the finance manager. What is our, that would be the year. What is our unrestricted fund balance at this point?
The last audit was 18 or 19%.
18 or 19? Let's go to 18%. What does that equate to?
What, do you have something else?
Yeah, it was
Unrestricted.
22.64.
Okay, he says 22.
According to the documentation that you all have from the auditor, it was 22.64.
What does that to equate to a dollar amount? Unrestricted, but it's in the millions.
Yes, it's in the millions, yeah.
I'm hoping that you're not thinking that we don't have enough money in the
Oh,
region.
no, no.
All right.
I'm just looking at, we have 22 point, whatever.
6.4.
22.64%. Let's say that equates to $9 million. $131,000 out of that is a small, very, very small percentage. And with the possibility that whatever is unspent goes back into the fund balance. So, any other questions or comments? All right, at this point, I would make a motion that we approve to go to a town meeting and then a referendum, the request for $131,000 to be moved into contingency to cover these potential expenses.
Second.
All right, the second motion has been made by myself and seconded by Linda. Is there any other discussion? Any other questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstained? So who we have, yes, we have 4 in favor, 1 against. All right, so to follow up that, town meeting has to be scheduled 2 weeks in advance, 2 weeks from.
At least
Nope,
2 weeks.
At least 2 weeks. And then the referendum, where does that fit on the calendar?
Again, it
10
would have to
days
be at least
afterwards?
10 days after that.
Okay.
I will propose a schedule for everybody to follow, and if that's okay, because there's other things that we'll have for a town meeting.
All right, our next order of business is to discuss and act upon a request from the Board of Selectmen to approve a request for $120,000 for demolition of 2 properties. We have documentation and information on these properties, and we have the first selectman would speak to these for us.
You have a packet in front of you that talks about the request. I highlighted a few of them. We've been working, by the way, with multiple properties that have issues. The first one was, out of those 4 that are listed on the front page, 18 Railroad Ave. The owner was very helpful. Coming into the town hall, we discussed what the issues are that he had to work on. One of them happened to be the old Sportsman's. Knowing that the roof, first floor, is all down in the basement, he excluded and took all of that out of there prior, but it's still unsafe. You open the door, you fall in, there's an issue. He was very, very helpful. He actually worked to do the demolition almost immediately, because he had to take the papers out and took care of his business. So that one, I'm trying to work with each of these homeowners or property owners to do that, is what I'd like to do. The next one up was, once that building was taken down, there were some issues, and we realized that the issues were very bad. I've been trying to contact the owner of 35 Prospect Street for a few years, talking about how they need to do something to make that building safe. Little did we realize just how bad the building was. You see there in the write-up that the building inspector goes into the property after 18 Railroad was taken down. We determined that 35 Prospect needed immediate demolition after the exterior and interior inspection proved that the large holes in the roof of the 3rd-story building and added water weight to force the collapse of the interior 3rd and 2nd stories, which landed onto the 1st floor and showed signs of collapse into the basement. Wall structures were compromised, and we were deemed to need immediate assistance. Let me point to those pictures that I gave you, if you don't mind. On the pictures, there is, on the front page of it, should show the staircase. He opens the door to the beginning, looks up the front staircase and sees a lot of light. He then steps forward, and what you're going to see in the next picture is the refrigerator working its way from the 1st floor going down to the basement. The next picture talks about the door frame that should lead to the back area is actually framing, the whole frame is being collapsed and going down to the basement. The next picture looks like there's a bookcase or a case over here. That is the downstairs register, which is now collapsing again into the basement. I think the most telling picture is the one, if you can turn it the right way, has the 2 windows at the top area. When he stepped in, and again, it was the building inspector, very cautious.
May I interrupt for a minute?
Yep.
These copies you gave us, there's only one picture.
There was a section over there that had pictures,
There's another pile.
a whole bunch of piles.
Yeah, there's another pile.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought you had taken them. So I'll slowly go back. Obviously, the staircase in the front page. Your refrigerator now moving its way down to the basement. The frame for the 1st floor is now aiming its way to the basement. The bookcase leaning forward shows you the register that's underneath it, now going into the basement. Believe me, he was very cautious when he stepped in. And again, the most telling one really is the one the last one there that shows you the two windows, and you have to put it in that position because, if you don't mind, I can approach this for 1 second. So that last picture there kind of shows you how bad things really are, because he's standing on the first floor. Inside there, those are the windows on the second floor. Then, that one window, sorry, the one window in the middle of the second floor. Those two windows on the top are the third floor. I don't know any other house that I've ever seen that you can actually stand in one place and see all the floors. Over on the right there, where you, left-hand side, you see the glow at the top. That's the whole roof. So we didn't need ventilation. That's why we took the papers for it and took pictures. We were afraid that we would fall into the road.
Which you were the one that
For anybody who wants to see the videos, they're unfortunate, but there are videos out there. Just so, let's go back also then to this property, and then I'll discuss the other one next. But I immediately called Mystic Air, and I got a contact person with Mystic Air who was away on vacation, couldn't make it there to do inspections. But we said we may consider this as an area that could contain asbestos based on the year that it was built and the materials that were in there. So we've been handling it as materials coming out as asbestos and doing that. So that is why we're trying to be very careful in our approach with taking the materials out of there. There's a lot of materials, unfortunately, soaked, absolutely soaked. So immediately worked with Joe from K&H, who, by the way, was also the one right next door doing the takedown of the Sportsman, so he knows the area. Worked immediately with us we called every agency under the sun to verify, call before you dig, electric company, gas company, sewer, town, because a town and state highway, because that is a state road right beside it. We got all of our approvals to go forward with it and had to take it down immediately. So that's why we are handling it as such, coming to the Board of Finance asking for monies for the demolition. The second one, and again, these are just 4 of them, but the second one is up on the top of Payson, on the corner of Payson and Norwich Road, 617. You've probably all driven by that house that looks like it hasn't been mowed or maintained for many, many years. Well, the garage in the back was an issue where it looks like a saddle right now because of the way it's bowed. And having it tested, finding that there's also an issue with asbestos. So we'll have to treat it as such. We're getting the estimates of how much the total costs just for those 2 buildings, and that's why we are approaching and asking for monies to come from from the fund balance to the tune of $120,000 for those 2. And we would also, any time we take an approach like this of taking things down, we'll put a lien on the property to try to recoup some of the monies.
Have you done, has it?
Yeah, well, in order to get a lien, in order to properly do a lien, you have to wait to the completion of a project, have all your bills, and then the attorney will then put together the lien for you. So we're still working a couple more days, maybe a week.
I got probably 2 more 100-yarders to come out of there.
And then once the bills are in our hands, we can actually properly execute a lien and then be able to work with trying to recoup the monies.
What happens when they hire a marshal to serve papers?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
What happens when they hire a marshal to serve papers on 619 North Groveland?
I'm going to have to hire a marshal because I can, if I don't mind my speaking for you, Joe, but you had tried to reach out to the gentleman who said I'd like to have it down.
I talked right to him.
Yeah. And that's the last time we probably had communication with him because he doesn't want to answer a phone or a door.
I went and tried to help him out so he didn't have to get a lien on his property. I even offered him to make payments. And he was all for it. And then when Well, next day or whatever, I tried to call him with no, he gave me his phone number, but he just ghosted me, so I couldn't, I thought that was a better option than getting a lien on your property, so,
Yeah, we can let you go.
yes.
Yep. Believe me, on each and every one of these, I try to work with the property owners. Like I said, I've been trying to reach out to 35 Prospect Street for over 2 years. I have a letter that was returned to me from December 5th, I think it was December 5th of 2022, saying, hey, would you be willing to talk to maybe Habitat for Humanity, who's interested in the building, and they would be able to fix it up. It was returned, so I never got any information or discussion with the woman until one day she came to the town to pay her taxes, which she does, she pays her taxes, and we talked to her and said, this is something we'd like to work with you on. And I gave her just a certain extension of X amount of days to get it done, or else sell it, fix it, or the town will look to, look and investigate it, and when we did, see what we can do to move that along. I didn't know it was that bad. I really didn't. So what you have in front of you in the packet, just so you know, these are the letters that are, according to state building code, requires us to put that out there for an unsafe building, code 117. I still try working with Mr. Gardner, but I don't think I'm going to be able to access him, so I'll have to find a way to do that via a marshal. And just to clarify, I think I've broken it down to what I think I need, because we would like to be able to pay for the work that was done. That's why I'm requesting the 120.
Anybody else have any questions?
They have the date of their taxes? on
She
these
paid on her
properties?
taxes.
Yeah.
She was still trying to sell it the day that we were about to take it down. Because she reached out finally, because I gave her all the numbers to call, different people to call. She finally reached out to Habitat for Humanity, wanted to sell it for $85,000, and said, but you can't go inside of it because it says unsafe on it. And that's why I know the management for Habitat, and she contacted me immediately and told me what was happening, so.
So this would have to go to a town meeting?
Again,
and
same thing.
referendum.
Yep.
Just curious, is this woman living there, or?
If you want the backstory, basically the Eversource cut the power 10 years ago. I think she had been living there up till maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and she was walking up to the 3rd floor with a kerosene to use as a kerosene heater. The other property was taken care of already, 18 Railroad. The owner took care of that. The 256 Spalding, they're working on trying to rebuild the property. I spoke to the owner personally. I explained to him that he had to pay his back taxes, he had to have a certified contractor to work on the property. They have a temporary easement for electric that only runs 1 year, and they're about 7 weeks away from having it completed. They won't have electricity after that point, so there's not much they can do. Again, I'll continue to talk to these people and work with them to see what we can do to have them do the work.
I move we approve the 120,000.
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Don and seconded by Linda to approve the request of $120,000 from the general fund that would need to go to town meeting and then a referendum. Any other comments or questions?
What are chances when you put a lien on something that you actually get money back?
In this particular case, there's different ways to get some of the monies back.
Years.
It could be. I mean, if you think about it, if those two properties side by side are now cleared, they are actually more appealing to someone to purchase and put something up that they want to put up. Whether it be mixed use or apartments or anything like that, there's less work for them to do at that point. So could we recoup some of the monies? Sure. I don't think we're going to recoup 90, because that's roughly what it's going to cost for that building. But we're going to get some of the money back.
Now, these two items, you're going to put on the same
Yep.
referendum?
Yes. Yeah, and I'll talk about that if you don't mind after your vote, but
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of motion on the table, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Last item on our agenda is to discuss and act upon a resolution to utilize EDCP funding for CIF Recreation Master Grant for $250,000. I wonder if you could fill us in on that.
sure. A few months ago, well, almost a year now, we were awarded the SIF grant, and that's a Community Investment Fund grant, for $250,000 to organize properly our recreation facilities and be able to figure out how we're going to best use those facilities to serve the public and be cost effective on doing so. The $250,000 for that SIF grant are very similar, by the way, to, remember a few months ago we came to you and asked to make sure that we go through the steps required by the state of Connecticut and also administered by the attorney. Hey, you have to have $300,000 for the inter-royal site for that monies to be approved by the town. Same thing. We've already been approved. There's no coming out of any of our pockets. This is money that's $250,000 for that grant. What we have to do is follow the steps. Board of Selectmen met last night, voted to bring it to the Board of Finance. Board of Finance would have its next say in it to bring it then to the town meeting referendum. I believe it's just town meeting though. Yeah.
So this is a matching,
No matching.
no matching, okay.
Yep. Yeah, again, no money out of our pockets, no money out of the fund balance.
This will be for Lions Park.
No. This is for anything that has to do with recreation. So whether it's,
Programs.
yes, where's best serving us as a community to invest programs or future monies to what we're going to do for the recreation department. Could be the pool, could be Lions, it could be the proposed recreational walking path over off of
Kate Downey.
Kate Downey Road. It could be utilizing the ball fields, things like that. It's just where is the best place to put the monies in the future, and how do we get to those programs?
So essentially, we've already been approved. Who makes a decision as to how the money is spent? Is that done at town level, I'm assuming?
Well, we'll be sitting down with some consultants, and they'll be reviewing everything with us. We, as a team, would sit down and talk about what we'd like to see.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just going back to what Kevin just said about making the decisions, like, a couple people are just gonna sit down and decide that, is the
Well,
citizens?
the recreation director and assistant director, finance director, myself, we would go through all of the, what are we currently doing? Where do you want to be looking to go in the future? What do you want to do for more programming? And so those are the people that help, and we'll work with a consultant, more than likely it's a consultant from the state, that can help us out to guide us down the path of what could work best for us. Best bang for your buck.
Would that have to go to a town meeting or anything to be approved by the?
This is a town meeting one. I don't think it's referendum because it doesn't come from monies out of our pocket, so it's just town meeting.
Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion that we approve this to go to town meeting.
Second?
I'm sorry?
Second? Did you make a motion?
I'm entertaining a motion.
Oh,
You get to make a motion.
yeah, I make a motion.
All right. Linda's made a motion that we approve this and go to the county meeting. Do I have a second? Lynn seconds it. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, you were going to make some additional comments about the next steps.
Yep. I'd like to be able to work on putting together a singular date for a town meeting and a singular date then for the referendum. I'm thinking of how we'd be able to save our time and our money and our efforts. So the things that we're looking to do are what we just approved, the $250,000 for the SIF grant, the contingencies for 131, the building demolition for 120. We also have an issue that the Board of Selectmen has been working with the town attorney and also Ryan from town planner for a discontinuance of Williams Road that would require a town meeting. There's also, depending upon when we do it, if it's done in time, other things that we could utilize for town meetings in the future, but I think those would be the ones we'd actually have. That would then send us to referendums for contingency and building demolitions. Technically, we're still working on the calendar, but we believe that November 25th on Monday would be the way to go for the town meeting, and then follow it up. Again, it says we have anything 2 weeks and above. So we're working on how we actually calendarize that, and I will get back to you with that. We'll probably have a selectmen's meeting to vote on that date, and then share that with the board. I think it's just better than having town meeting after town meeting after town meeting.
So there has to be at least 10 days between the meeting and the referendum, at least.
Yep. And there's another one that we could be talking about soon, just so you know. At this moment, we have been getting discussions with the Board of Education for a review of their building, the old ECC building, because again, we're looking to sell that. Things that are holding us up right now are we're waiting for, hopefully and by Friday, an independent auditor taking a look at the value of the property. So that property, once it's valued, is going to help us out. We'll probably end up going to a selectmen's meeting and trying to find a realtor to help us with the sale of. And then from that, being able to contact the people they've contacted my office asking, when are you going to put it for sale? What can we do with it? So there's a bunch of people that have looked into that already. We're hoping that we can have the realtor, well, our hopes are bidding wars, but we're looking at that as a way to, again, generate revenue, be able to move that building. There are some other issues with outside of that building. There is, I don't know, if you drive by, you'll see that gazebo is tilted. They tried moving it off the frame and had a problem, so they're not going to move it any further. I have at least one group that's looking to purchase it. And then monies again would go into the fund balance. Also, the playground equipment, there's also a group that's looking to purchase those. If that gets sold, then money goes to fund balance. So that's what we're looking at right now. Eventually, we'd have to, with that, because it's a sale of a property, town charter requires us to, again, go to a town meeting. I'm going to anticipate that's going to be a few months down the line, so it may not fit within the time frame that we're talking about for the other ones.
Now, is there, for the town meeting and referendum, there's a maximum amount of days?
That's why I have to check the calendar. We're working on that right now.
And I know, I think there's...
Okay, you can't let it go a year.
Something like that,
Yeah.
it's maximum, if you're required to have a referendum.
Yep. Minimum and maximum.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're planning a singular meeting to discuss items, town meeting for items D, E, and F, but the referendum is only for D and E because
Correct.
we don't need it. At this time, I'll open up the floor to citizens' participation. If there's anybody that wishes to address the board.
Kelly's just dying for me to talk, so she goes, I want to go home.
And there's a microphone
Just
over
real
here.
quick, so I get what Gary was trying to say. I get the contingencies and stuff. Those are all, Scott Child, 35 Sterling Road, Worcester, Connecticut.
Thank you.
So I get the contingencies, and you look at the raises, and you're right, they're staggering. Some are going 19%, some are 11%, some are 13%. And you look at what people are going through today. You know, we just hiked everybody's insurance at work today, $50 a week. And they're never gonna recoup that because their employees making $16, $17 an hour. You give them 3%, they're gonna get 51 cents, so they're gonna make an extra 20 bucks a week. But the company's grabbing 50 for your insurance.
Believe me, they're not far behind Greenwich.
Right, so, but my point is, but it was already voted on for the contingency, so the taxpayers really aren't losing anything. But what I don't like, what we're hearing is we're trying to play catch-up. I'll give you an example on the school side. School side's complaining about the teachers. You do look, our teachers are underpaid. You look, our paras are very underpaid. There's an advertisement right now out in Norwich for a special education para, full-time, for $27.80. My wife makes $20.50, and she's been doing special ed for however long. So she could very easily, so my point is if I'm the paras union and I hear that the town of Plainfield wants to catch everybody up, well, heck, let's make a new contract and go to $27.80 on the teacher's contract, because we're going to catch everybody up. So you got to be careful with stuff like that. If you're going to catch up one union, you can bet the rest of the unions are going to come calling. Is just my point.
They opened up a hornet's nest.
Yep, that's what I got.
Anyone else? Thank you. Well, at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion is made to adjourn by Lynn and